So what happened? Proxy wars, military coups, assassinations, and leaders backed not for their competence, but for their loyalty to the side. Whether capitalist or communist didn't matter. Stability was traded away for short-term alliances. Africa became less of a player and more of the pitch. Now let's talk money, the part many documentaries skip. Most African economies were designed during colonial rule for one purpose: export raw materials. Gold oil, cocoa rubber, copper tea, coffee. But here's the catch. Africa doesn't control the global prices. It's like being the best farmer in the neighborhood. But the supermarket sets the price, the middleman controls the transport, and you never own the factory that turns your crops into profit. So when world prices drop, economies collapse. When prices rise, the money rarely stays long enough to build strong institutions. This dependency makes governments vulnerable to corruption, desperate for foreign aid or alliances, tempted to cling to power just a bit longer to fix things. And corruption, it's not cultural, it's structural. When a country's budget depends on one export and a few people control that export, let's just say temptation becomes a full-time job. Here's the uncomfortable truth, but we'll say it plainly. African leaders often stay in power for decades because weak institutions mean they can. Political opponents are easy to manipulate or remove. Controlling a resource-rich state is extremely profitable. Superpowers historically rewarded loyal stability over democracy. Divided societies make it easy to play one group against another, and rewriting constitutions is simpler when accountability is thin. 40 years in power isn't always about ego. Sometimes it's survival, sometimes it's greed, sometimes it's fear of what comes after, but the root cause? The shaky foundations created long before independence. Now for the final piece of the African paradox, the narrative. For decades, Western media showed Africa as conflict, famine, disease, corruption, poverty. That imagery became the only story many people know. When that story is repeated long enough, it becomes a brand, even when it no longer reflects the whole truth. And what happens next? Investors hesitate, tourists avoid. Africans themselves start doubting their own potential. It's like telling a gifted young athlete every day that he's not good enough. Eventually, he stops trying, not because he lacks talent, but because the world keeps handing him the wrong script. So, does Africa's history matter? Yes, because that history explains the present. And the present shapes the future. Africa isn't behind. It's recovering from a 400-year interruption. And despite everything, it remains the youngest continent, the richest in natural resources, home to fast-growing tech sectors, home to some of the world's most dynamic cities, culturally influential like never before. The paradox isn't permanent, it's transitional. So when people ask, if Africa had such great ancient civilizations, why is it struggling today? The answer isn't simple, but it's clear. History reshaped its borders. Global powers fought on its soil. Economies were built to export, not grow. Institutions were young and fragile. Leaders exploited the gaps. And narratives painted a continent as less than it is. But Africa's story isn't finished. In fact, it's barely in the second act, and this time, Africans are writing the script themselves.
Listen well. Stories of our ancestors deserve a bright voice. Follow African stories told right.